Okay, let's begin. We are on Daf Chaf Zayin.
I think we just the last halacha and we had just turned the page.
To Kaf Chet.
Yeah, that was the last thing. You remember we were telling Avi right before he was walking. He said that
Yeah.
I never left the shul.
Yeah. Let's start again. Shalu Tamidav et Rav Preda. The students of Rav Preda were on 27b4, last line before we turn on to Kaf Chet. Right at the bottom, Chav Zayin Amud Bet. Shalu Talmidav et Rav Preda. The students of Rav Preda asked him a question. What was it that let you live so long? What did you do that's of extraordinary merit? Amar lehem, mi amai lokidemani adam the Bet Midrash. I was always the first person in the Bet Midrash, so that stood for me as a tremendous zechut. The fact that I was number one in the Bet Midrash. Guys, just put your phones on mute if there's noise. All right, like that. Put your phone on mute. I'm not sure who that is. Okay, perfect. So, velo berachti lifnei kohen. I did not do berkat hamazon in front of a kohen. So, in other words, if there was a kohen that was there, so I didn't allow the kohen to be secondary to me, and I just I left. Hold on one sec. Okay. All right. Now, what is that? What's the question over here? Why is that considered a good thing? The person who's supposed to do Birkat Hamazon is really first as a Kohen. Like a lot of times, if a person does Birkat Hamazon, they say Birshut Kohanim. So, what is he saying that I did not do Birkat Hamazon in front of the Kohen? So, there's two ways around that. One way around it is you say, "Listen, Kohanim, I have a big Talmid Chacham here. I want him to be the one who's going to do Birkat Hamazon. So, if you don't mind leaving the room, or if you don't not mind not being Makpid, so in either scenario, it turns out that the person is doing it in front of the Kohanim, even though it's they've given permission. So perhaps that is the case where what he was doing was exemplary and not just the halakha. As we said last week, these things that are giving a person an extra benefit on life, it can't be that they're just obligated. You can't say, you know why I merited long life? Because I didn't kill anybody. Didn't kill anybody is something that everybody has to do. That can't be an extra special reason. And also, I didn't eat from a behemah for an animal that didn't already have the gifts to the Kohanim given in the first place. So, what's the question over here? Why would he have been able to eat from the animal before it was huramu? Before it was, the halakha is he has to give it to the Kohen. So let's say he ate the item of the Kohen. That would be obviously a problem because he's eating the chelik that belongs to the Kohen. I think what the Reb Preda was saying to his students is, I didn't even eat something I didn't eat anything from the animal of heter until the Kohen got his part, right? Because otherwise there's no chidush. If you ate the part of the Kohen, that's a thing that you're not allowed to do. Okay, Gemara now continues. What's the third thing that we say from Rav Preda? A person is not allowed to eat from the meat from the animal if it's not yet been given. It's as if he ate tevel. Tevel is the fruits or vegetables that have an obligation to have Tuman Maser taken until it's done, right? Yeah, it's already considered tevel. The Gemara says, "Velet hilchata kavate," and the halakha is not according to him, because if the halakha was according to him, like we said already before, right? If the halakha is correct, that Rabbi Yitzchak is correct, then what Rav Preda did was not a mitzvah. Now let's just go one step further. Assuming that Rabbi Yitzchak is wrong and it's not tevel, so he's comparing tevel of fruits and vegetables to an animal. So one way of understanding it is that the halakha is not like him, and therefore you're allowed to eat from it because it's not considered tevel. Okay, it's not considered something that you're not allowed to eat from because it doesn't have Teruma separated from it. But even if that's not the case, one could understand that Rabbi Yitzchak is not halacha like him, so it's not considered tevel, but still, it's an exemplary thing to do to wait to eat from your meat until it's already separated. Okay, let's continue. All right. The Gemara now continues. So what we just ended off with is really two ways of understanding the opinion of Reb Preda. One is that he holds according to the halacha not like Rabbi Yitzchak, and therefore it's not tevel. So therefore it was allowed. So then what was he saying that he was doing? He was doing something. He was being more strict because it was allowed and it wasn't tevel. But obviously it's not something which is something that the regular person would do. Gemara continues. Okay, what's the other thing that Reb Preda said? Lo barakti ifnei kohen. What does it mean? Lememra demal yutahi. You're telling me that that's something extra special? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, kol tamid chacham shebevarech lefnei afiv kohen gadol ha'maaretz. Any tamid chacham, right, is allowed to do Birkat Hamazon, right? And it's his zechut to say it, even if the other person's a kohen, even if the person's a kohen gadol ha'maaretz. Obviously, if he's a kohen gadol talmid chacham, then he outranks him because he's talmid chacham plus kohen gadol. But if he's talmid chacham ha'maaretz, oto talmid chacham chayav mita. That talmid chacham is chayav mita. Shneimar kol misanai ahavu mavet. All those that hate me, i.e., when we're talking about me, we mean the Torah. Torah is talking about itself, right? Ahavu mavet. They love death. Al tikru misanai. Don't read it those that hate me, the Torah. Ela masniai. Not those that hate me, but rather those that cause me to be hated. So what's the case over here? If the Kohen Gadol says to the Kohen who's a Am Haaretz, no, you do it. What is he making it sound like? That being Kohen Gadol, who has no Torah knowledge, is a higher thing than a person who spends his life filling himself and becoming a Talmid Chacham. So doing that causes other people to hate the Torah, and on that the Torah says there's a terrible punishment, a punishment of death. Now, obviously, we don't mean that he goes to Beit Din and Beit Din rules death on him. But in other words, there's an obligation, a chiyuv mita, midei shamayim, on someone who disrespects the Torah. Where else do we find this? We find this in the Mishnah Avot. The Mishnah Avot says that if someone stops in middle of his learning and he says, "Oh wow, look how beautiful this tree is," right? He has the death penalty. What does it mean he has the death penalty? It means that he's disrespected the Torah by becoming distracted and giving primacy to a random comment about the beauty of a flower. Okay? Other commentators say if he looks at the flower and sees the hand of God, then that's something else because he wasn't posek mitalmudo. He didn't stop learning. That is also considered an act of learning. That's one way of understanding it. A second way of understanding it is that the Gemara doesn't mean this as harsh as it's making it sound, but rather, what do we say about the Torah? Etz Haim Hi Lema Hazikim Ba. The Torah is a tree of life for all those that hold on to it. When a person gives a Kohen the right to go before him, so in that moment, so to speak, he's let go of holding on to the Torah as the highest value. So it's not that he's obligated in a death penalty, but rather the extra shmirah that Torah gives him. Let me take it one step further. We know very well the famous story about David HaMelech. It says David HaMelech, when he found out when he was supposed to die. So the whole of Shabbat, what did he do that Shabbat? Shavuot, he's sitting there studying Torah nonstop. The Yetzer Hara doesn't know what to do. The Malach HaMavet says he knows he can't take him while he's studying Torah. So what does he do? He goes outside. He makes a terrible crashing noise outside. David HaMelech is distracted for 1 second from his learning, and the Malach HaMavet comes and takes his life. So it's not that because he paused for 1 second because he was startled by a noise that he is chayav mitah, but rather the Torah that he was using as a extra special shield of before death, that is no longer in his hands. So sometimes that could wind up meaning that the person who otherwise would have had this protection will not anymore, and therefore he has this mitah b'dei shamayim. Okay, that's a simpler way a lighter way of understanding the Gemara. Let's carry on. The Gemara says, Ki ka'amar ihu. The Gemara says, if that's the case, so what did we just learn? That for Rav Preda to never say, ostensibly, he would have come across one time a situation where he was with a Kohen Gadol Ha'aretz. So he says that he never gave a beracha, did Birkat Hamazon in front of a Kohen Gadol, in front of a Kohen. How could that be? There would have at least been one time where there was a Kohen that was an Ha'aretz. And then on that, we just saw as a negative practice. So it can't be that caused him to have long life. In fact, it says over here the opposite. Gemara says, Ki kamar ihu. When did Rav Preda say that? B'shavin. When they were of equal levels. So when the Kohen Gadol, that was there, and he was of an equal level, that's when he allowed the Kohen to say Birkat Hamazon. But any case where the Kohen was lower than him, where it was not, as we just learned, it's not considered a commendable, it's good practice to make the Torah subservient to the Keunah. So there he didn't do it. The Gemara now moves on to another Tana. By the way, it's interesting because there's another reason with Rav Preda that the Gemara does not bring that we have from another place. Okay, about why he lived a very long life. Come back to it, Bezrat Hashem, in just a minute. Gemara says, Shalu Talmidav Rabbi Yechunia ben Akana. The students of Rabbi Yechunia ben Akana asked him a question. What was the question that they asked? They asked, same question. I never found honor in the putting down or in the embarrassment of my friend. Never also did I have on my bed the klala of a haver, to curse a friend. Uvatran b'mamoni ayiti. And anytime it came up, please put it on mute. Rabotai, please put it on mute. The last thing is that if there was an opportunity for me to have to be the one that gives in, the one that forgives. When it came to issues of money, I was mivater on my money, and I just said, you know what, it's okay. I'm not going to sue him. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. Now, there's three things here. The first one is, he said, I didn't get honored by someone else's disgrace. I never allowed that to happen. That I would big up based on someone else's loss, someone else's embarrassment. The second thing was, now that's a very interesting expression. Why would we say that the klala never came onto his bed? If you said, the curse of my friend never came across my lips, that I can understand. But what is he saying? That there was never a curse on my bed?
Never went to sleep angry.
Oh, so it seems over here that the Gemara is telling us that he never allowed a fight to go with him into bed, which is a fascinating thing, because that means that he's not saying that he didn't ever have a situation where he felt like, or maybe he even did curse somebody. He's saying, but I never let that go with me overnight. In fact, from the Torah, we see that the Torah says, "Mekalel aviv imo." You can't curse a father, your mother. You can't curse a nasi. We see that there's not a Torah prohibition to curse somebody per se. Okay, and if that's the case, so it's the baseline of the mitzvah. It's not don't curse somebody, because again, we'd have to prove why this is exemplary. The answer is to curse someone is not asur. Maybe it's not a good thing, but it's not asur. And Reb Nechunya ben Akana is saying that even if it ever happened during the daytime, it never managed, the fight never followed me into my bed and stayed with me in the next morning, which means I always forgave them. And that leads neatly into the third one, that I was always mivater when it came to my money. Gemara says, let's understand what Reb Nechunya ben Akana is saying. I never got honor from the pain of or the embarrassment of my friend. There was a situation with Rav Huna, and he was walking with a shovel on his shoulder. The Rav Chana bar Chanilai saw the rabbi Rav Huna, carrying the spade, and he tried to take it from him. Amalei, he said, if you are a person that is used to, you carry a shovel in your, where you live, dare, then you could take it. Ve'ilo, if not, it yakri ana beziluta didach. I'm going to be honored by your degradation. And lo nichali, I don't want to do that. Let's just be clear. If he was a person that always carried a spade or a shovel in his own town, and now he's carrying a spade or a shovel, so he's not being embarrassed because that's what he does all the time. But if it's something that he never did, all of a sudden people are seeing the rabbi walking, in a way which is not befitting his kavod. So what's going to happen then? His embarrassment, i.e., the embarrassment of Rav Chana Bar Chanilai, is going to cause Rav Huna to feel a little bit better because he's now not walking through the streets holding a spade over his shoulder. Someone's holding his vessel. So therefore, Rav Huna did not want to do that. That's an example of finding not being raised up by the embarrassment of your friend. Why is the Gemara giving this example? Again, the same concept. Because if all he's saying is, I didn't make myself better by saying, this guy, I'm ha'aretz, he's not a Talmid Chacham like me. That's not a reason why you live a long life. Someone who embarrasses somebody else, en lo chelek le'olam haba. So what did the Gemara do? The Gemara found an example of embarrassment where there really isn't any embarrassment. The guy offered to carry it, and Rav Huna was saying, I wouldn't want you to be embarrassed, even if I didn't embarrass you, even if it's not embarrassing, right? Still, I'd rather not be mitkabed biklon havero. The next understanding of Rav Nechunya ben Akana, velo alta mitatikilat chaveri. Like the case of Marzutra. When you get into his bed, Amar, he would say, Shari I forgive anybody that caused me any pain. So Nechunya ben Akana was also saying the same thing as Marzutra, that he didn't take the cursing, the upset of anyone with him into his bed. Uvatran mamoni hayiti. Also, he was mevater. He gave in when it came to his money. Mar Yov vatran mamoni haya. Mar said, Yov was someone who was always forgiving with his money. Whenever there was a scenario where there was an extra bit of change in the interaction between him and the chenvani, so he would always give it to the chenvani, would always give it to the shopkeeper, and he wouldn't demand it. He wouldn't demand it back. So you see again that is considered a good practice. Gemara continues. Sha'ar Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Nechunya Hagadol. Rabbi Akiva asked Rabbi Nechunya Hagadol. Okay, and that's the same person. Why do you live long? Gemara says, Atu Gavze v'kamachule. While he's asking this question of why do you live long, the students came along, the servants, the butlers, Ya'ani, of the rabbi, Nechunya ben Akana, came along, and they started hitting him. Salik Yativ Aresha de Dikla. Rabbi Akiva, what did he do? In order to not get beaten up, he quickly ran, he climbed up a date tree, palm tree, okay? Amaleh, he said, Rebbe, im ne'emar keves, lama ne'emar echad. If the pasuk says keves, why does it also say one? Now let's take a look at the famous pasuk that Rabbi Akiva was referencing. Et keves echad taseh baboker, et keves hasheni taseh b'nabayim. Once it says keves, that already means one sheep. By saying et keves echad or echad, that's extra. Why do you need it? Rabbi Nechunya immediately understood, right, what Rabbi Akiva was actually, who he was, because of his scholarly, question, this point that he made. He told him, this guy is a Talmid Chacham. He's not asking. Now you see from Rabbi Nechunya's point that up until that point, they thought that Rabbi Akiva was just coming and picking on Rabbi Nechunya, like, why do you deserve to live so long? You're not someone that has merit. So they understood that as a chutzpah to the great Rabbi Nechunya, so that's why they were upset with him. Now he said, no, he's Tzuba Merabanan, he's a rabbi. He was asking from the right place. He was asking from a place of wanting to know. Now, what was the great scholarly point that Rabbi Akiva was making when he said, once it says hakeves, it already says one. What was the point? Why did he need to say that? So the Gemara, the understanding of what Rabbi Akiva was communicating. Okay, he said that you see from there that there's an extra word in the pasuk. Now, it sounds like Rabbi Akiva is just pointing out a random question on a random pasuk, and therefore he already realized that okay, the guy knows Chumash. He's not a dib, right? But perhaps there's something more here. Maybe what Reb Nechunya was saying was something better. Maybe what Rabbi Akiva was pointing out was something better. But let's first see what Rabbi Nechunya answered him, and then we'll come back and understand what it was that Rabbi Akiva was trying to hint to him. Amar lo, you asked me a question. I'm going to answer you. The answer to your question is echad miyuchad shebe'edro. The reason why it says akeves et akeves echad, the one, even though akeves is one, is to tell you echad miyuchad shebe'edro. It's telling you the best one in the flock of sheep. That's the one that should be brought as the korban. So we always choose the best one for the korban. That's why it says keves, which means one. Echad means the one, the single, the only, the one. Okay, and that's why it says those two descriptions would both mean one. Now,
That's
Rabbi
what we
Nechunya
learned
goes
from Cain
back.
and Abel.
Sorry,
That's what we learned from Cain and Abel.
that he should have brought the best. Exactly. Amar lo, he said to him, Mi amai lo kibalti matanot. My whole life, I never accepted any gifts. V'lo amati al midotai, and I never stood on principle. Being inflexible because of my midot. Uvatran mamoni aiti, and also I was easy with my money. So over here you see, maybe it sounds like Reb Nechunya is saying something a little bit different than what he said before. But let's see what the three things of Reb Nechunya are, and then we'll come back to it. Lo kibalti matanot, I didn't accept any gifts. Ki ad Reb Elazar says, when they would send him gifts from the house of the Nasi, Rabbi Elazar, lo avishakil, he would not take. Ki when he would invite him to come to a party or whatever, lo avi azil, he would not go. Amaleh, he would say, lo nicha lechu de'echye, you don't want me to live? You want me to take a gift? I don't want to take the gift. Why don't I want to take the gift? Because the pasuk says, "Tichtiv soneh matanot yichye." If a person hates gifts, he will live. So therefore, Rabbi Elazar said, I don't want to take your gift, but don't be upset with me. I know that you want me to live. So therefore, that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this in order to stay alive. Okay? Reb Zera now says something else. Reb Zera, ki have mishadu le mebenesia, when they would send him gifts, lo avishakil, he wouldn't take. Ki have mizam le, but when he would invite him to a party, to a banquet, have as he would go. Amar ityakru mityakru bi. Since I'm a talmid chacham and they're inviting me because they want me to join in their event, so therefore it's not kavod for me to turn down the invitation of the nasi because they are honored when I go to the event. So when someone asks a rabbi to turn up to their party, they're not inviting the rabbi because the rabbi needs a steak from them. They're inviting the rabbi because having the rabbi there means that you're a person who's held in high regard by the rabbi. So therefore, Reb Zera felt that even though taking a gift is only beneficial to him, whereas attending the thing, that's beneficial to the house of the Ben Nasi, and therefore we wouldn't say no. So I was wondering about this, by the way. How come he didn't say the same thing about receiving a gift from a Ben Nasi'ah? To give a gift to a Talmid Chacham is good for the person who gave the gift. So therefore, why should I deprive them of that benefit? The answer is because there's no matana per se in going to the party. There's matana in the party if you receive something from the party. But to not go is not the same as to not enjoy. So I could go to the party, but if I'm not taking it from it in a personal, selfish way, I've achieved the avoiding soneh matanot tichyeh, and I've also been mityaker. I've allowed the bein nesi'ah to receive the benefit of my presence and the yakar that comes with it. What was the second thing that he said? Lo amadti al midotai. I didn't stand on principle. I wasn't inflexible because of my midot. Amar Rava, Kol ha'ma'avir al midotav. Person who is ma'avir on his midotav, on his midot, he doesn't get angry when he should have. He doesn't stand on principle when he can be bent. When he can bend, ma'avirin mimenu kol pisha'av. They take away from him all of his sins. Shneimar noseh avon ve'over al pesha. So noseh avon literally means that God is carrying our avon and he passes over our pesha. However, how is Rava learning the pasuk? Lemi noseh avon. Who does God forgive their sins? Lemi she'over al pesha. Someone who's able to overcome someone else's sins against him. Now, let's just come back to what I was saying before. Perhaps what was Rabbi Akiva saying? Rabbi Akiva said, why do you deserve to live? And the students misunderstood Rabbi Akiva, and they thought he was saying that he didn't have a merit to live, so they chased him up a tree. Rabbi Akiva said, no, that wasn't what I was saying. What I was saying is, I know you're a Talmid Chacham. I know you do mitzvot. I wasn't saying, do you have any merits? I'm asking, what makes you, out of all Chachamim, the unique one, which is what Rav Nechunya is about to say as a derasha. The miyuchad be'edro. You lived a very long life. Lots of other Talmidei Chachamim did not. What makes you, if it says hakeves, doesn't have to say echad, unless you understand that there's a difference between this sheep, and that one is extra special. So what makes you extra special? That was Rabbi Akiva's wise way, I would like to suggest, of saying to Rabbi Nechunya that he meant no disrespect. Let's continue. The Gemara says, Sha'al Rabbi et Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha. Rabbi asked Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha, what made you live long? Amar lo, he said, Katzta bechayai. What, you don't like me living long? Amar lo, Rabbi, Torahi, v'lilmod ani tzarich. I'm not ayin haraying you. I'm not suggesting you didn't deserve it. All I'm saying is, this is Torah, and I need to learn it. I have to ask. I have to learn everything that I can. I would learn from my rabbi. He answered him, Amar lo, miyamai lo nistakalti b'dimut adam rasha. I never looked in the face of a wicked man. Rabbi Yochanan says, Asula adam nistakel b'tselem demut adam rasha. You can't look at the tselem demut, the face of the shape of a person the face of a person who's a wicked person. Shneimar, like it says, Lule penei Yehoshafat melech Yehuda ani noseh. If not for the fact that I hold up the face of Yehoshaphat, the king of Yehuda, im abit alecha im areka, I wouldn't even be willing to see you. I wouldn't even be willing to engage with you. What is it talking about over there? Rabbi Yochanan, the Yehoshaphat, right? When Yehoshaphat had to get an appointment with the Navi, so he came with his partner, and his partner was someone that wasn't worthwhile. So Elisha said to him, if not for the fact that I'm seeing Yehoshaphat, I wouldn't be willing to see you. And you see clearly that it is a derogatory practice to look in the eyes of a Rasha. And Rabbi Yehoshua ben Korcha is saying that I wouldn't have even lived a long life if I would made it the practice of wicked people. So a person should take that into their mind when they're watching the news and a picture comes up of some terrorist or whatever. Sitting there looking at these people's faces is asur, and is not advised. A person should not be looking, rather only at tzaddikim, like the pasuk says, you enecha, your eyes should see, ro'ot et morecha, they should see those that you fear. Rabbi Elazar Amar, Rabbi Elazar says, enav kehot, if a person looks at a rasha, his eyes become darkened. Rabbi. When Yitzchak became older, his eyes already, they darkened, they dimmed from being able to see. Why did they dim? One of the opinions put forward why Yitzchak could not see by Rebbe Elazar is that since he looked at the face of Esav Rasha all the time, that caused his eyes to be dimmed. Yes. Avi.
Is there a closer one there?
Avi?
All right, thank you.
No question. Okay. The Gemara says, "Veha garmale." Is that the reason why he wasn't able to see? Let not the curse of a simple person be simple in your eyes. Why? Because Avimelech inadvertently or advertently cursed at Sarah. What did he say? He said, "Hinehu lach shenemar, hinehu lach kesut enayim." He told her, "This is for you," after having kidnapped her and being told by God that if he didn't return her, he was going to pay the ultimate price. He returned her and he gave money like a bribe. He says, "Let this be for you as kisut enayim, a covering for the eyes." V'nitkayem, as the Gemara said just now, bizarah. That curse, a covering for the eyes, came true in her children. What's it called? Al tikri kisut. Let it not be. Don't say kisut. Ela ksiyat enayim. Don't understand it to be kisut, a clothing for the eyes, but rather understand it to be kasiyat, a covering of the eyes. And therefore, says the Gemara, that was the reason why Yitzchak became blind, because of the curse of Avimelech. Gemara says, "Aveha karmaleh." Both of those things were contributing factors to Yitzchak's blindness. Okay? Rava says, Mehacha. Here's where we learn the idea of not looking at a Rasha. Se'et pnei Rasha lo tov. To look at, to lift your eyes to the face of a Rasha
Thank you.
is not good. And therefore, that's a reason why Rabbi Zera said to Rabbi Yehuda why he was Ma'arich Yamim. Sorry, why Rabbi Yoshua said to Rabbi Yehuda why he was Ma'arich Yamim. Rava Amar, Bishat Ptirato, when Rabbi Yoshua passed away, okay, and we just said the story about Yoshua and Rabbi. Yoshua is passing away. Amar Lo, he said, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said to him, Baracheni, Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha, my Rabbi, bless me. Amar Lo, he said, Yiratzon, Shtagia Lechatzi Amai. You should be zocheh to achieve half of my days. Ulachulu Lo, Rabbi Yehuda was very nervous. He says, "What? I shouldn't live as long as you. You want me to live half? Right? Why? How come?" Amar Lo, he said, "Habaim acharecha behema yir'u." This is a fascinating answer of Rabbi Yoshua, and I think it underscores something as well. Let's just take a look at Rashi. Rashi says about half of the lines in the middle of the page. Habaim acharecha behema yir'u bitmiyah. He's asking like a question. And tov lecha lechyot yamim rabim kamoni. It's not good for you to live such a very long life like me, because he lived extraordinarily long. Please put it on Zoom. Please put it on mute, guys. Mute. And tov lecha lechyot yamim rabim kamoni. שאם כן, לא יתלו בניך בגדולתך. ואתה נשיא, והם כל ימיהם. Sorry, I'm not sure how to mute.
Who's JC?
I'm not sure. Someone only the host.
JC, you got to mute.
Sorry, Rabbi.
Yeah, JC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Always the guy with those initials causing problems for the Jews, huh? Okay. What's he saying?
Always the wives.
What is he saying? He's saying as follows. And tov lecha lechyot, right? You want to, do you want to live as long as me? And then everyone that comes after you, what are they going to do? They're going to be shepherds? In other words, if you live as long as me, what will happen to your children? Your children won't be able to follow in your ways. They won't be able to become leaders after you. So they're going to be shepherds. So therefore, it's good for you not to live so long like I lived, because then your children will follow in your ways. And indeed, the children of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi did follow in his ways to become the Nisi'im. The Gemara says, Avua bar Ihi uminyamin bar Ihi. These two children of Ihi praised themselves for this. Chad amar teti li delo istakli bekuti.
Can I call you in 10 minutes?
Teti li I should be given a reward. Because I never looked in the face of a goy who was Oved Avodah Zarah. The other one said, Teti li, I should have reward. Dilo avdi shutafut b'hadekuti. I never worked with a person who was Oved Avodah Zarah, indicating that they were worried about having a shared practice or a shared language, or to look in their face. So we see two of these understandings at the same time. Now, there's other reasons also, by the way, that are brought down for why Yitzchak was blind. Another reason was because of the smoke of the idolatrous korbanot of Esav's wives. So that's another opinion as well. Okay, let's just wrap up the Gemara. You know what? We'll end here and we'll pick up from here. Be'ezrat Hashem. Next on Sunday, inshallah. Okay. Allah Mac boys, Shabbat Shalom.